Okay, so today is the March 14th online class, and here are kind of the steps that we're going to go through today. So the first thing you want to do is look at these additional resources, and they each have a link here. The first one, the reason I gave that to you, is summary is hard to do. So here's kind of a guide of how to write summary, and it takes you through this kind of example so you can get a little bit of practice. Also, remember that on your template, you don't have a lot of room for summary. So I would say aim for 4 to 5 sentences for your summary in your annotated bibliographies. And make those summaries relevant to what your actual topic is. So kind of center it around that as well. Likewise, in these summaries, you don't want to just take directly from the abstract of a lot of the times those peer-reviewed articles. I will know. So actually read the whole thing and summarize what is actually pertinent to your research projects. Okay, so that's the first resource. The second is just a reiteration of the CRAP test. It's on one page this time instead of in that slideshow, but you can use the one in ballpoint as well. They're the same. Okay, so there's that. You should be more familiar with that one. And then I've also done an example annotated bibliography. And really, okay, this is also related to your Tuesday's online class because the sources I chose for that video of what to cite were actually from an annotated bibliography I did in my literature and film class as an undergrad. And just as a trigger warning, I do talk about articles that talk about prison rape in this annotated bibliography. And I'm going to open those up now. And so you may want to skip ahead till after you see the screen kind of close if that's going to be sensitive material for you. So opening that now, skip ahead if that's problematic. Okay, so for this annotated example, I did 2 citations, one an academic article and another thing that's fictional work. So kind of evaluating that is different. So once again, you don't have a lot of room for these summaries, just a couple of sentences. Evaluation should be a little more thorough. And once again, I use the CRAP test to do that. Discussion of how you're going to use the source, choice quotations, and then how is it fitting with other sources in my annotated bibliography. Once again, this is something I just modified from a annotated bibliography and project I did in undergrad. So it may not be perfect, and because I did it as a sophomore in college. So yeah, there's all that as an example for you to look at if you're curious about that. Then you're going to watch this video lecture. Wait, you're already doing that. That's cool. And then you will complete this worksheet. This one's really short for you. Yeah, we didn't need you to do a lot, but you do need to be watching this video so that you can kind of get all this other information that we need. So in this video, we are going to talk about our plan to proceed with a proposal. So that's like kind of the last section we need to look at. Just a reminder that your timelines, we did half of that in class together, so you can take that and use that. Part 2, you need a part 2 of your timeline, and I suggest going back to your schedule here, and this may change by the time you're watching this video, but really just look at Unit 4, so knowing that we started on March 21st, the paper's due April 16th, so thinking based on what I'm telling you you need to submit and everything, make your own plan for the paper writing process of 8 to 12 pages. And so that's the last timeline you kind of need to create. So you may say, I need to make sure I make my outline by 3:26 and do 3 pages by 4-2. Really just kind of make your own timeline for that as well. And that's that second half of the timeline. But the section that comes before that in an annotated bibliography is going to be your how you plan to proceed section. So this is from Ballpoint. It's under writing it up, research proposal. And you should have already read this a couple weeks ago. But likewise, the how you plan to proceed section is kind of, I'm going to explain it a little bit differently than Ballpoint kind of does. Probably, but that's okay. Because you guys have already kind of started on your plan and your research, and the fact that these assignments have to be in conjunction doesn't quite make all the most sense. So I'm going to explain it a little bit differently than the writing program would probably have. Okay, that said, so our plan is you're convincing your audience you have a clear sense of the work that needs to be done. That stays the same. You need to convince me of that. You indicate what your audience is going to kind of see. And in the example here, they have this, and I think this is a good start, but know that this isn't as fully developed as we may want. And I'm going to urge you to think about this in terms of the assignment prompt. So you need 4 peer-reviewed articles, 2 newspapers or magazine sources, 1 website, and 3 miscellaneous. And in this, I kind of just want you to break down those bullet points. What do you need? Why do you need each of those sources besides the fact that they're required by me? Think about like what each of them will illuminate for your research topic in question. And that's kind of how we're going to think about that. And to do so, we're going to actually get in a time machine, go back to 2014 when I was a freshman in college. And I'm actually going to show you all the materials I had for my research paper for my English 101 class, which was the first semester of our first year composition at Ashland, which is where I went to undergrad. Okay, so I have this folder here. It says research report. You can see that none of this has really been modified since 2014. But the other thing I kind of wanted you to see in this, and I'm going to minimize everything really quickly. Oh, there's so many tabs. Look away. Oh my gosh, okay, that's a research project. Okay, so many, okay, that's email. We don't need to see that. Oh my gosh, I can't even get to the, sorry. Okay, that was a lot. Thank you for bearing with me. Okay, but you're going to see this folder here filled with documents. And research isn't just going to be one draft and done. It is going to take a few drafts of things, and that's perfectly okay. I recommend from here on out always saving things as different drafts because you may want to go back to them. Also, if this were to ever happen, not that I think any of you would ever have this happen, but if there's ever academic integrity issues that you're called up against, showing that you have multiple drafts and you were doing the work yourself can sometimes save you in those cases. So yeah, always save as different drafts. I just call things like draft 1, draft 2, save it as different things. Okay, that said, I'm going to show you first my proposal that I had for my very first research paper. And it's really bad. So yeah, not everything I do as a writer is perfect, and all writers have grown from somewhere, and you grow too as a writer. So I just kind of want to show you, oh, that is not the right thing. That was not the right one. It was focused idea paper. Okay, so this was my proposal to my professor that I submitted, and we read this book called The Other Westmore. It was excellent, by the way. But we were supposed to pick like one thing about that book that kind of interests us. And in that book, there was the issue of one of the Westmores. They're real people, and it was a nonfiction book. He had gotten his girlfriend pregnant, and they were teenagers in Baltimore, Maryland at the time. And so I was really curious, based on their education in a low-income district, what education has to do and plays a role in teenage pregnancy. But you can see here in this amazing, I totally joke, proposal that I submitted, I asked the initial question of what are poor areas of urban cities doing to address teen pregnancy. Then I went on to talk about prevention and aftermath, 2 completely different topics, by the way, which is what we narrowed down in our proposal meetings. I asked probably like, I don't know, let's count 1, 2, 3, 4 questions there, and then another 3 questions there. So I was kind of all over the place. And the plan to proceed that I did was this. This is not what I want you guys to do for your paper. This kind of became an abstract here. My question ended up changing, I can see in that drafting process, of how does sexual education in the United States affect teen pregnancy? That is something we can work with, and that's something more. I probably should have added a time frame looking back on this. Yeah, so, but this is kind of a question we can work with, and this is actually what we're going to use to kind of do our example today. So then the last thing I want to show you is I did an anti-bib. I'm not going to show you that because that's not anything like what we're doing for this class. But despite this really like shitty proposal that I submitted, I ended up writing a 10-page paper. And yeah, so it is possible and you guys will do it. So just stick with me in this research process. It's going to be okay. Like you can see, I added a full research. So it was supposed to be, I think, for this class, 8 to 10 page paper, and I did that. And you guys can all do that too. Even if you start with something that wasn't so good, it can always become better because all writers can grow. Okay, that's enough on my soapbox today. So let's practice with that one question here. How does sexual education in the United States affect teen pregnancy? And if we were to do that question, we're going to practice once again the how you plan to proceed section of your annotated bibliography. And this is kind of the last section that you guys need to kind of know about. And I think a good way to think about this first is to list the requirements for the paper. So we need 4 academic journal articles, 2 newspaper/magazine, 1 website, and 3 miscellany. Okay, and I think that this is a good way to kind of block out what this is. So in your 4 academic journal articles, you're going to kind of want to think, what can a journal article give me that other things can't? So in this case, with this practice question in mind, how does sexual education in the United States affect teen pregnancy? My journal articles may want to be just kind of brainstorming here, things from the CDC. So looking at health information, maybe that's not, things from the Department of Education, because I'm looking at sex ed. Maybe even something from CQ Researcher, because they're going to have more of these kind of topics here. And what these journal articles can give me is peer-reviewed statistics and analysis of teen pregnancy in the U.S. For newspapers and magazines, I may look for articles about sex ed changes, maybe some articles on teen pregnancy rates. I know that in this paper that I ended up doing, I found that comprehensive sex ed should be offered everywhere. Even, like you guys know, I'm from Ohio, and actually within the last few years, Ohio switched back to abstinence-only sex education. So even though I did this project in 2014, that may be a current article that I would want to look at for newspapers. Okay, for websites, I may want to look at some sort of credible website that gives me, that's maybe I don't want to say like sex ed site, but like one that kind of either discusses teen pregnancy or is made for teens about sex ed. Pregnancy, okay, prevention for teens. Okay, and then my 3 miscellaneous. I may want to look at books that are written about sex ed, look at teen pregnancy rates on websites. And then maybe, so let's just say I'm going to have 2 books, and the books are going to be about sex education and teen pregnancy prevention education. Okay, so that's kind of like a general way to think about this, especially from the miscellaneous section. You want to justify why you're using the things that you're using. After you kind of have outlined all of this, you want to say your plan to proceed, and in a way that kind of puts this all into sentences. So if we look back to this example here, what are you going to explain through each of these things? So this student wrote, I plan on explaining to uninformed coaching staff the problem within the lack of education regarding X. They're doing primary research. I could do that, but I didn't plan to in this plan to proceed. So I plan to look at pregnancy statistics and overviews of the problem through peer-reviewed sources such as the CDC, maybe even the World Health Organization. There's probably one for the US too that's kind of like the World Health Organization, but because I don't think like pregnancy is a disease, I'm not really sure where that would be located, but something along those lines. And CQ researcher. Also, I plan to look at the Department of Education's, and that should be capitalized because it's a proper noun, Department of Education's reports, because they've set out annual reports about different things on sex education. Then I also plan to use newspaper articles about changes in sex education in the US, as well as articles about teen pregnancy rates. To supplement this, I will use a credible website whose intended audience is teenagers who need pregnancy prevention education. Finally, I will use books to, and I kind of already said the website thing, so that's okay, to that overview and analyze sex education in the United States as well as teen pregnancy. And that's pretty much what you're going to do for your plan to proceed. The thing I would like the most elaboration on is the miscellaneous sources that you plan to use, and kind of specify that. But yeah, so that's just kind of what that section's going to look like. Take us through each of these. Remember, I know that I'm requiring you to have them, but really kind of think about what you're going to get from all of these different sources. Okay, and that's pretty much how you do the plan to proceed. I've overviewed that now. Like I said, your timeline's already up there. Remember, the annotated bibliography that you're supposed to be filling in is in Canvas, so I should have just said where I got that. My bad. So go to your home page. It's under your assignment sheet. So this is what you're going to actually submit, is this. You also need that research folder to submit, so make sure you're keeping it up to date with all the PDFs of sites that you have. So citation, discussion, etc. Please email me if you have any questions, but remember to, for this online class, download this worksheet. You're going to, 2 things you learned from the provided resources, so those are either any of these 3 things up here. 2 things you learned from this lecture, and what is 1 question you still have for when we meet again for peer review on Tuesday. So with that, remember to bring hard copy. According to the schedule, you are going to bring, I don't remember the number, 2 hard copies of your proposal and your annotated bibliography to class. So you will bring those along and we will have peer review. Email me if you have questions, but thank you guys.